schools and our legislative chambers and the offices of executive government, we find a unity of effort and purpose which can only be to the benefit of this state and her people. And what of tangible advances? Again, we have come far in this period of time, although still not a wealthy state, judged purely by materialistic standards. We have developed an industrial base to counterbalance and complement the already tremendous agricultural economy of Alabama. Our industrial development and expansion equals or exceeds almost all the states of this region and compares favorably with any state in this nation. We are developing and realizing return on the many blessings our state possesses in mineral and energy-producing resources such as coal, oil, and gas, as well as other rich mineral deposits. We have one of the largest coal reserves in the nation, and only in recent days exploratory efforts have disclosed the existence of new oil and gas resources in the southern area of our Alabama. In the light of the energy situation throughout the world, all of this becomes increasingly important. In the area of navigable streams, industrial water, forests, and timberlands, the capacity to produce wood and fiber, we possess many assets of great importance to our people as we look to the future.
In talking about the budget that's submitted each year by the governor of Alabama on usually the first day of the legislative session, it's a document about this thick because it requires the governor to set out and recommend certain amounts of money for each and every department and function of state government. You know, in Alabama, we have a law that requires us to submit a balanced budget. We cannot submit a budget that's not balanced. That is, we cannot spend more than we take in. And that is a good law because in some states they don't have a law that requires a balanced budget. So Alabama must live on the income that it takes in each year. It cannot spend more than it takes in. Now, the legislature of the state can, of course, change the budget in the sense that they can give so much money to one department, that is, they can take away some from one and add something to another. It does not require that the legislature pass the governor's budget intact, exactly like I submitted it. They have the right to make changes. Then when the budget comes down to me after it's passed by the legislature, I have a right to send up items in the sense that I can take something out or leave something in or add something to the budget. And if the legislature wants to accept it, they may do so. And if they do not, then of course they can reject it.
We are gathered together today on the steps of this state capitol in an historic moment. We are witnesses on this day and in this hour to the greatness which truly binds all of us together as a people. For we are today heirs to that first freedom which was heralded to the world at another time and in another place, that spirit of free men everywhere which had its birth in 1776. We celebrate today not the victory of one individual over another, nor do we rejoice at one party's win over the other's defeat. Rather, we celebrate today the right to peacefully govern ourselves. We celebrate the freedom to democratically choose who, from among our ranks, shall be asked to lead. We celebrate the right of every citizen, regardless of race, age, religion, or station in life, to enter into the workings of this republic and cast his vote according to the dictates of his own heart. We celebrate the right to determine without fear and without hesitation what our own destiny shall be, as God gives us the light to see that destiny. You, the people of Alabama, have determined that these next 4 years are years of challenge for our state. You have determined that they are years which will require the best that is in each of us if we are to overcome our many problems. And you have determined that they are years in which stagnation must be converted into organized effort, despair must be converted into hope. The man I am honored to introduce in this hour is no stranger to hope. He is no stranger to faith. In my own humble estimation and judgment, he is no stranger to his God. My father and your governor, for the 4th time, has stressed on more occasions than my memory will serve, 2 overriding values in his life: his unending faith in the Lord and his unswerving faith in the people of Alabama. And I know from my own personal experience that as he begins a tremendous undertaking of these next 4 years, he will rely heavily upon both. General Robert E. Lee once said, "Duty is the most sublime word in the English language. Always do your duty. You can never do more, and you should never wish to do less." The man who appears before you on this inaugural day today to receive the oath of office as governor will do his duty, God willing. I know that in doing so, he seeks your encouragement, your continued support, and your prayers. It is now my privilege to introduce to you my father and your next governor, the Honorable George C. Wallace.
That shows we haven't run out of Wallaces yet.
We can get situated here now. He's going to
Yeah.
both sides.
Put this one under Jan.
George, if you would raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible and repeat after me. I, George Corley Wallace,
I, George Corley Wallace,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Alabama,
and the Constitution of the State of Alabama,
so long as I continue
so long as I continue
a citizen thereof,
a citizen thereof.
and that I will faithfully and honestly
I will faithfully and honestly
discharge the duties of the office
discharge the duties of the office
upon which I am about to enter
upon which I am about to enter
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
What's that water? Yeah, this. I want to say to all those distinguished office holders at the federal level and state level, and to all you who are here today, that as you know that I take this sacred oath the fourth time. But first I want to remind you, one of our distinguished former governors is today James E. Folsom, is today in an intensive care unit at Coleman Hospital in Coleman, Alabama. Let us offer our prayers for the recovery of a former distinguished governor of this state, former Governor James E. Folsom. So I also want to thank Dr. Hill, those who have served on the task forces that have rendered so much assistance to us during these trying times. I want to say to Governor James that I appreciate his very many kindnesses shown to me during the time that he was governor. And tell my wife and my family, my mother and all my family, that their standing behind me has made it possible for me to continue since that day in 1972 when I was taken out of the presidential race. Well, I take, as I said a moment ago, the sacred oath for the first time, fourth time, for the approval of my public conduct through a period of our history that has not been without difficulty, and for his renewed expression of your confidence in my good intentions, I'm at loss for terms adequate to share my gratitude. The Bible asks, what doth the Lord require of thee but to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with our God?
This I pledge to God and to Alabama. To the extent of my humble abilities, and continued efforts to administer the executive so that the meekest among us might accept our good faith, that the strong might extend to us the hand of expertise without prejudice. I pledge to you a government guided by an humble man's sense of duty and mercy and justice. You in the state of Alabama have been good to me and to my family. Now in some small measure I seek to repay you for the many kindnesses and blessings that you have bestowed upon me.
Lurleen Burns Wallace, 51st governor, was the first woman in Alabama history to be elected governor. She ran for the office when Governor George C. Wallace could not succeed himself in 1966. In her short term of 15 and a half months, she pressed for the upgrading of mental health facilities in Alabama. Lurleen Burns Wallace was born on September the 19th, 1926, in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to Henry and Estelle Burroughs Burns. She was governor of Alabama in 1967 to 1968. She died May 7th, 1968. Governor Lurleen Wallace is buried in the Greenwood Cemetery, Montgomery, Alabama. Global position, 32 degrees, 22 minutes, 20 seconds north, 86 degrees, 15 minutes, 46 seconds west.
So it gives me a distinct honor, pleasure, and privilege to introduce to you the next governor of the state of Alabama, Mrs. Lurleen Wallace.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's wonderful to be home, you know that. After a year, you might say, of campaigning, you can't imagine what it feels like to be back home tonight, the night before the election. And it's a wonderful homecoming for us. Of course, we have enjoyed our travels to every section of Alabama, but it is certainly true that there is no place like home.
January the 16th, 1967. It was a day when history was made in the land called Alabama. The day when Lurleen Burns Wallace, a 40-year-old mother of four, was inaugurated as Alabama's first woman governor. Indeed, she was only the third woman to serve as governor of any state in the nation, only the second to be elected chief of state. Lurleen Wallace's Democratic primary campaign attracted the largest crowds in Alabama's political history. She swept over 9 male opponents to amass a record-breaking 480,841 votes, an incredible 54% without a runoff. Then she breezed through the general election, despite a formidable Republican opponent, with 63% of the votes, a landslide. But just who was this Lurleen Wallace? This mild-mannered woman in the navy blue blazer who won the heart of all Alabama. Her story began in 1926 in the Foster's community of Tuscaloosa County, where Lurleen Burns was born. A bright, fun-loving youngster that spent her growing up years in the Tuscaloosa city and county schools, graduating at the age of 15. Too young to study nursing, her longtime dream, Lurleen took a business course and went to work part-time in a Tuscaloosa 10-cent store. It was in that 10-cent store that she was introduced to a 23-year-old graduate of the University of Alabama Law School, George Corley Wallace. It was a chance meeting, but one which set into motion the course of state politics in years to come. A course which destined Lurleen Burns to someday make an unprecedented impact on the very soul of Alabama. Several months later, when Lurleen Burns was 16, she married George Wallace. By the time she was 18, the petite blonde wife had become the mother of the first of 4 children. And by the time she was 36 in 1963, she had become First Lady of Alabama. For during the ensuing years, George Wallace had entered politics, climbing the ladder of public service from Barber County legislator to circuit court judge to governor. Much could be said about Lurleen Wallace as the First Lady who endeared herself to the people of this state. She opened the governor's mansion to the public for the first time in history and hosted countless functions in that stately old showplace. She had a special interest in children, which prompted this First Lady to personally select and wrap more than 1,400 presents every Christmas for those in Alabama's children's homes. Her enthusiasm as a volunteer pink lady who found time to knit for the patients at Bryce Hospital. She was truly First Lady Lurleen Wallace. The story continues, though, for this gentle woman with a smile on her face was soon to sculpt an indelible imprint on all of Alabama in an even greater capacity than that of the wife of a governor. By 1966, George Wallace had become a national figure who wanted to keep alive his own brand of politics. But the Alabama Constitution forbade the governor from succeeding himself. Consequently, Lurleen ran in his stead.
I am happy today to offer the voters of Alabama the opportunity of enjoying continued progress, prosperity, and honest, efficient government, which has been so much in evidence during the administration of my husband.
As a campaigner, Lurleen gave her smile to thousands of Alabamians and studied the faces of thousands more, assessing the character of a free people whose will it was to remain free.
I pledge to you that I shall do my duty to you in honesty and with conviction. With God's help and guidance and with wise counsel to call upon, I shall make you a good governor.
As a wife and mother, she believed in the family and envisioned a government where decisions were based on the family's good. But as chief of state, Governor Lurleen was someone special. She was the first governor in history to visit the state's mental hospitals in Tuscaloosa, an action that sparked a $15 million bond issue for mental health. She engineered a road bond issue, a more equitable distribution of gasoline tax to state banks, and a full bounty of other programs designed to make Alabama a better place to live. Regretfully, there is no way to gauge the potential of Lurleen Wallace as a politician and public servant because less than 16 months after she took the oath of office, Governor Lurleen died after an enduring personal campaign against cancer. She was 41. As the newspaper reported the next day, Lurleen Wallace died on a star-filled night while her state slept around her. The paper concluded, however, that those who knew her best feel sure she would want all who awoke to the sorrowful news to remember, day always follows night. Living memorials to Lurleen Wallace will uplift the quality of life in this state for generations to come. There's a mental health center at Decatur, a junior college at Andalusia, and a nursing school at Jacksonville State. Programs earmarked by her administration for the welfare of youth, and a memorial hospital and tumor institute at the world-acclaimed Medical Center in Birmingham. Aside from the long list of tangible testimonials to the life of Lurleen Wallace, undoubtedly Lurleen's chief legacy to her people was her constant faith and steadfast courage. Truly a personal inspiration to citizens everywhere.
As I see the familiar faces of friends of long standing, memories come flooding back. Memories of our first years in Clayton, the beginning of our families, the hard times, the joys, and the moments of sorrow. The time spent in the Clayton Methodist Church, the Clayton Theater, when it was open, a meal at Sam Sears Cafe, or just a cup of coffee with a friend in their home or in our house.
That was Lurleen Wallace. She was just as much at home on a speaker's platform or attending to the business of state as she was at Sam Seals Cafe. Her very spirit was etched on the beach, the ball game, the fishing camp, the campaign, the crowds, the face of a mentally retarded child. She was a proud Alabamian and a lady in every sense of the word. Yet most assuredly, she was her own woman. She had ceaseless compassion and a keen intellect. She was in love with life and lived it to its fullest. She was Lurleen.
Albert Preston Brewer, 52nd governor, was the third governor to succeed to the office on the death of the incumbent. The others were Thomas Bibb in 1820 and William Jelks in 1901. He served in the Alabama House of Representatives and was Speaker of the House in 1963. He was sworn in as Lieutenant Governor on January 16, 1967. He assumed the office of Governor on May 7, 1968. During the more than 2.5 years of the Brewer administration, improvements were made in the areas of mental health and education. He was born in Bethel Springs, Tennessee, October 26, 1928. He was a member of the Alabama State House of Representatives, 1955 to 1967, Speaker of the Alabama State House of Representatives, 1963 to 1967, Lieutenant Governor of Alabama, 1967 to 1968, Governor of Alabama, 1968 and 1971. Brewer lives in Birmingham and is associated with a nonprofit organization. He teaches occasionally at Cumberland School of Law.
No, I do doubt it. I don't believe that adequate revenue bills can be passed this year to raise $75 million in new money. However, we're expecting to have, with surplus and growth in existing revenues, some $20 million, hopefully 20, available for the next fiscal year. So that, with some new revenue sources, would make available a very attractive education package, and I think sufficient monies can be raised to let us meet the problems that we have in education today. Certainly the more pressing problems, the ones that we were to give priority to today.
Constable said yesterday that he thought that 50 or 60 million would pretty well make people happy. Do you think so?
Who said that?
Mr. Matthews?
Oh, you mean the chairman, the Wilbur Mills of the legislature? I think he's probably right. I'd defer to his wisdom. We are very much interested in the principle of teacher evaluation or merit pay for teachers, and we have given a great deal of thought and study to implementing this with legislation. We believe it can be implemented, and we expect it to be a part of any program that we present to the legislature. I might add this: legislators themselves have been overwhelming in their reaction to this. In fact, most of them, or with a great many of them, this has been the #1 priority to them on an education program. Yes. I don't know about this. Senator Bales talked with me some days ago about the possibility of the state prosecuting some of those who were not prosecuted in the federal court action, but who turned, we call it state's evidence there. I have discussed this with the Attorney General's office. Of course, any action that's taken would be taken by a grand jury in the circuit of our state where the alleged crime or wrongdoing occurred. For example, if there was an allegation of an act of extortion or payoff in Jefferson County, then it would be a matter for the district attorney to present to the grand jury there. If it was a matter that allegedly occurred in Montgomery County, then it should go to the grand jury here, and so on around the state. Just from reading the press reports of the trial, it would appear that allegations were made that acts took place in various places in Alabama. And of course, each would be a matter for the jurisdiction involved, that is, the locality where the alleged crime actually occurred. conferences every week because the reporters ask some very direct and straightforward questions. But we've always tried to give them direct and straightforward answers. I believe the people are entitled to know this. And frankly, if I don't know the answer, I tell them that I don't know it, but that we'll find it out and pass it on to them. And we followed this policy. We followed a policy also of getting out with people at every opportunity we could. During the past 2 years, I've made over 300 appearances in different counties in Alabama. We've been in every county in the state, not as a part of the campaign, but long before the campaign began, because I feel that a governor owes it to his people to go and visit with them and to appear on programs, to just be present there so that the people themselves are exposed to the governor and the governor is exposed to the people. I think this is very important. Now, there's another thing that needs to be done, and we followed this policy.
Governor, here we are with the long, hard campaign almost over now. You've been on the campaign trail, so to speak, for almost 2 months. How does it feel, and how do you feel about the election on June 2nd?
Well, Bob, it's a wonderful experience to run for governor, to get out and meet the people of Alabama, to talk with them in their hometowns, on the streets, at the plants where they work, the factories, in the stores, anywhere you find them, really. To hear them talk about government and what they expect out of their state government, their questions about government, their hopes for the future of Alabama. But most of all, the things I remember about it, and that I'll always remember, has been the warmth and the interest of people, their friendliness, their reception. They've just been wonderful to me and to Martha and to the girls, too, as they've been out visiting around the state during the course of this campaign. We feel good about the election. People are interested in state government now.
About the issue of law and order. You've pointed out that we don't have a law and order problem in Alabama because we do have law and order. Why do you think we've got peace in Alabama? Why have we got calm, and how are we going to keep it?
But of course, this is another instance where the example set by the highest leadership in the state is important. It's important to our state if we're going to grow and develop, if we're going to take advantage of the potential in tourism and bringing people into Alabama from outside our state to vacation here and everything, that we have a peaceful atmosphere in this state. And our people want it. Goodness knows we've had enough trouble in the past. And our people like calm, and they like to be able to go about their daily lives without demonstrators in the streets and without a lot of upheaval and turmoil and unrest and confusion going on. And it's just important that we have it. And because it's so important to the future of our state and to the daily lives of Alabamians and to the protection of our people and their property, I'm determined that we're going to have peace in Alabama and that we're going to have an atmosphere of law and order here. And I've made it clear to all of these potential troublemakers that that's the way it's going to be. A few weeks ago, there was some trouble at the University of Alabama. A small group of militants there infringed on the rights of all of the students, all of the other students at the university. There were some few faculty members involved in this, too. They burned a building there. They did this business of sitting in and occupying a university building, paid for by the taxpayers of Alabama, disrupting the educational process there. And we took prompt and firm action, sent in state troopers to guarantee the safety of the students on that campus and to guarantee the protection of the property of the taxpayers and the investment in the University of Alabama. We're just not going to tolerate this sort of thing. And the university administrators in Alabama and every school in Alabama have got a responsibility, too, to see that these young people that are not there to get an education don't stay there. And the same goes for faculty members as well. We're simply going to have peace in every facet of our society in Alabama as long as I'm a governor.
There's an interesting story about how it happens, and the people that Senator Clark was talking about who were filibustering against the trade school junior college program realized at some point in the filibuster that they were on the very unpopular side. This concept was very popular with people. The original legislation was introduced by Rankin Pike, who's been mentioned earlier. Franklin desperately wanted a trade school in Hamilton, Alabama. To do that, he was willing to he knew to pass it in the legislature, he'd have to have something for some other people too. So he offered a bill that would provide for 5 junior colleges and 5 trade schools, one of which was understood to be going to Hamilton, Alabama. Rankin was this way. He didn't mind spending the state's money to help him in his own county. When the filibuster developed in the Senate over this legislation, and when the filibusters decided they should try to seek cover, they were trying to save face, and so they wanted some concessions